Hey everyone, welcome. Let's talk about taxes. But I don't mean the money that just leaves your wallet. What is the real, true cost of a tax? There's this hidden cost that's kind of at the center of, well, almost every single debate about taxes. And today, we're going to break it down and make it super simple to understand.
You might think the cost of a tax is just the tax I pay, right? Simple. But nope. The real answer uncovers this invisible drag on the whole economy. It's so much bigger than just the dollars and cents you send to the government.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at a simple deal that gets undone by a tax. Then we'll actually visualize this hidden cost. After that, we'll get into the deciding factor, elasticity. Then we'll cover something really cool called the tax size paradox. And finally, we'll connect all this theory to real-world policy. Okay, first up, a deal undone by a tax. To get our heads around this, we don't need any fancy graphs yet. All we need is a super simple story about two people, Zarya and Ethan. So, check this out. Zarya is willing to pay up to $165 to get her laundry done. For Ethan, his cost to do the job is $140. They meet in the middle and agree on a price of $150. I mean, this is perfect, right? It's a total win-win. Everybody's happy. This is exactly what we economists get excited about. We call it gains from trade. And just look at the actual value that's been created here. Zarya was ready to pay $165, but only paid $150. That's $15 of extra value for her. That's her consumer surplus. Ethan's cost was $140, but he got $150. That's $10 of value for him, his producer surplus. So together, just by making a deal, they literally created $25 of economic value out of thin air. It's like magic.
Okay, but now, plot twist. The government comes along and slaps a $35 tax on laundry services. Suddenly, the whole equation changes for Ethan. It's not just about his own costs anymore. He's got to pay the tax man, too.
And right here, this is where the whole thing just collapses. Think about it. Ethan's cost is $140, plus he has to pay a $35 tax. So to even break even, he has to charge at least $175. But Zarya's absolute maximum price she's willing to pay is $165. See the problem? The tax has created this impossible gap. There is no price that works for both of them. So the deal is off. And this is the absolute key. What's the result? Zarya's stuck with dirty laundry, Ethan makes no money, and you know who else makes no money? The government. Since the deal never happened, there's nothing to tax. So that $25 of value that could have existed, poof, it's just gone. It vanished into thin air. That is the hidden cost we're talking about.
Okay, so that was a story about just two people. Now let's see how this exact same idea plays out across an entire market. We're moving from our simple story to the economic model to really visualize this hidden cost.
All right, so here's your standard supply and demand graph. Before any taxes get involved, the market works beautifully. It settles at a price and quantity where everyone who wants to buy or sell at that price can. All this area up top, A, B, and C, that's the value consumers get. And the area down below, D, E, and F, that's the value for producers. The whole economic pie is as big as it can possibly be. It's efficient. But then we add a tax. And look what happens. The very first thing is that the quantity sold drops. Fewer deals are being made. And the surplus, it gets all carved up. Consumers are now left with just this small piece, A. Producers are left with just piece F. And the government, well, they collect their tax revenue, which is this rectangle here, B plus D. So you've got to be asking yourself, wait a minute, what happened to areas C and E? Where did they go? Well, they didn't go to the consumers, they didn't go to the producers, and they definitely didn't go to the government. They're just gone. This is the Zarya and Ethan story on a massive scale. C and E represent the value of all the deals that now don't happen because of the tax. It's pure lost potential. And this loss, this vanished value, has an official name. Economists call it deadweight loss. It's the total surplus that just disappears because of a market distortion like a tax. It is the value of all those trades that the tax prevented from ever happening. This is it, the true hidden cost of a tax. Okay, so this leads us to a really big question, right? Is the deadweight loss from a tax always the same size, or does it depend on the situation? Let's talk about the deciding factor. Elasticity. This is all about why some taxes mess up the economy way more than others. So, what determines how big this deadweight loss actually gets? It all comes down to one crucial word: elasticity. And all elasticity really means is how much do people react? When prices change because of a tax, how much do buyers and sellers change what they're doing in response? Let's make this super clear. Imagine a market where supply is inelastic. That just means sellers are kind of stuck. They can't easily change how much they produce. So you tax them and, well, they mostly just keep on doing what they were doing. The market doesn't shrink much and the deadweight loss is pretty small. But now, picture a market where supply is elastic. These sellers have lots of options. You tax them and they can easily cut back or do something else entirely. The market shrinks a ton and you get a huge deadweight loss. And by the way, this works the exact same way for buyers and the elasticity of demand. You can see this everywhere in the real world. Think about it. If the government only taxed Mountain Dew, what would you do? You'd probably just buy Sprite or Coke, right? Demand is super elastic because there are tons of substitutes. That tax would create a massive deadweight loss. But if they tax all soda, well, you have fewer options. Demand is more inelastic and the loss is smaller. Same idea for luxuries versus necessities. It's way easier to give up going to a fancy restaurant than it is to stop buying bread and milk. All right, this next part is really, really interesting. It's a bit of a paradox, and honestly, it gets into some pretty heated debates. We're going to talk about what happens as a tax just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You might think you know the answer, but it's probably not what you'd expect. So just follow the story on this chart. You start with a small tax. You get a decent amount of revenue, and the deadweight loss is tiny. No big deal. You make the tax bigger. Okay, your revenue goes up, but that deadweight loss is now growing much, much faster. And then you hit this bizarre tipping point. If you make the tax really big, it discourages so many trades, it basically kills the market, that your tax revenue actually starts to go down, all while the deadweight loss becomes absolutely enormous. This whole mind-bending idea has a famous name, the Laffer Curve. It's this simple but really powerful graph that shows as tax rates go up, tax revenue also goes up, but only to a certain point. After that peak, if you keep raising rates, you actually start collecting less revenue because you're destroying the very economic activity you're trying to tax. So, why does any of this matter outside of a classroom? Well, because it's not just theory. This brings us right into the heart of a huge, real-world political debate. We're going from theory to policy, and the big question it helps answer is, how big should our government be? Think about our income taxes, which are really just a tax on working. The whole debate over the size of government often boils down to what you believe about elasticity right here. If you think people's decision to work is pretty inelastic, most folks are going to work their 40 hours a week no matter what, then you'd say income taxes have a small deadweight loss. And that makes big government programs seem less costly to society. But if you think labor supply is elastic, that people can adjust their hours, maybe one spouse stays home, people retire earlier or work under the table, then you'd believe income taxes create a huge deadweight loss, and that becomes a powerful argument for a smaller government with lower taxes. Okay, so let's wrap this all up. Here are the big ideas to take with you. 1, taxes have a hidden cost called deadweight loss. 2, this loss is just the value of all the good deals that a tax prevents from happening. 3, the size of that loss totally depends on elasticity, how much people react. And 4, bigger taxes don't always mean more money for the government. So I'll leave you with this final thought. A state is collecting $100 million from a 5% sales tax. A politician says, let's triple it to 15% and we'll get $300 million. Well, now you know why the answer isn't a simple yes. It's way more complicated. The next time you hear someone propose a simple tax hike to fix a problem, you'll understand the invisible cost, the deadweight loss, and why the answer is never, ever that simple.